Two countries that have been at each other's throats for centuries. Two peoples who insist they have nothing in common. Two flags, two languages, two histories written in mutual suspicion. And then a team of geneticists ran their DNA side by side, expecting to see a clear line between Europe and Asia, between the Christian world and the Islamic one, between the descendants of Constantinople and the descendants of the conquering Turks. What they actually found broke the room into silence. Because on the genetic map of the Mediterranean, modern Greeks and modern Turks are not just neighbors, they are practically the same population. And that's only the beginning. This is the story of what happened when scientists stopped listening to politicians and started reading chromosomes. They took blood samples from across Turkey, from the coast of the Aegean to the mountains of the east, from Istanbul to villages so remote they don't appear on tourist maps. They lined up that data against every European nation they could get their hands on. Greeks, Italians, Bulgarians, Albanians, Spaniards, Germans, Russians, even the British and the Irish. They expected the answer to confirm what every textbook still teaches in some form, that Turks are an Asian people who arrived in Anatolia 1,000 years ago and pushed everyone else out. That's the story. That's the legend. That's what a child in Athens learns and what a child in Ankara learns, just told from opposite sides. The DNA does not agree with either child. Let's go back, because to understand why these results shocked even the scientists running the experiment, you have to understand what people thought they would find. The standard narrative is simple. In the 11th century, a confederation of Turkic tribes calling themselves the Seljuks rode out of Central Asia. They had horses, they had bows, they had a language nobody in the Mediterranean had ever heard. In 1071, at a place called Manzikert, they crushed the Byzantine army. The gates of Anatolia opened. Over the next 400 years, wave after wave of Turkic people poured in, eventually crystallizing into the Ottoman Empire, the empire that would put a sultan on the throne of what used to be Constantine's city. The popular imagination filled in the rest. The Turks, the story goes, replaced the locals. They pushed the Greeks to the coast, the Armenians to the east, the Kurds to the mountains, and made the whole peninsula their own. So when geneticists started sampling, they expected the genome of a modern Turk to look mostly Central Asian, with maybe a thin layer of Anatolian on top. That assumption was wrong by an embarrassing margin. Here's what the DNA actually shows. The average modern Turk carries somewhere between 5 and 15% ancestry that traces back to Central Asia. 5 to 15%. That's it. The rest, the overwhelming majority of every chromosome in every cell of every Turk alive today, is local, Anatolian, Mediterranean. The same gene pool that produced the Hittites, the Phrygians, the Lydians, the Greeks of Ionia, the Romans of Asia Minor, the Byzantines. When the Seljuks arrived, they did not replace the population. They married into it. They imposed a language and a religion, but they did not erase the people who were already there. Those people just started speaking Turkish and praying differently. Genetically, they were the same farmers, fishermen, and shepherds whose ancestors had lived on that land since the first wheat was domesticated 9,000 years ago. Now stack that against the Greek genome, and the punchline writes itself. Greeks and Turks, when you strip out the small Central Asian component on the Turkish side, are nearly indistinguishable. Their principal component plots overlap, their haplogroup frequencies mirror each other, the same J2 lineage that tells the story of Bronze Age Anatolia shows up at almost identical rates in Athens and in Izmir. The same EV13 marker associated with the Southern Balkans is shared. Mitochondrial DNA, the line passed only from mother to daughter, tells the same story on both sides of the Aegean. These two populations, which spent a century writing each other into novels and propaganda films as eternal enemies, are siblings on the genetic family tree, not cousins, siblings. But the surprises don't stop with Greece. Look further west. Italian populations, particularly southern Italians from Sicily, Calabria, and Apulia, show striking overlap with Western Turks. That shouldn't be a complete shock if you remember that Magna Graecia, the network of Greek colonies in southern Italy, was settled from the Aegean, and the Aegean has always been a two-way bridge. People moved from Anatolia to Italy and from Italy back across the sea for thousands of years. The Romans did the rest, scrambling Mediterranean populations into a continuous gradient of related peoples. So when you compare a Sicilian and an Anatolian Turk on the genome browser, you don't see a clean break. You see a soft slide, the kind of pattern that only forms when populations have been mixing slowly across a shared body of water for millennia. Move north. Bulgarians, Albanians, Romanians, Serbs, Macedonians. The Balkan Peninsula was Ottoman territory for half a millennium. You'd expect, if the popular narrative were true, to see massive Turkish ancestry pushed into the Balkans. You don't. There are traces, especially in Bulgaria, but the influence is modest. And here's the twist. The flow may have actually been heavier in the other direction. When the Ottomans recruited soldiers, administrators, and slaves from the Balkans through the Devshirme system, they brought Slavic and Albanian DNA into the heart of the empire. Some of that genetic material settled into the population around Istanbul and never left. So when geneticists compare a man from Sofia to a man from Edirne, they don't always see a Turk colonizing the Balkans. Sometimes they see a Balkan that was absorbed into Turkey. Now the question becomes interesting. If modern Turks are genetically Anatolian, where did the Turkic genes go? Did the Seljuks just vanish? They didn't. Their signal is still there if you know what to look for. Geneticists searching for it have found small but consistent traces of East Eurasian ancestry, the kind associated with populations from the steppes of Mongolia, Siberia, and the upper Yenisei. You see it more in eastern Anatolia than in western Anatolia, exactly as you'd expect from a migration that came in from the east and slowly diffused. You see it more in some tribal groups than in others. But it's a layer, not a foundation. The bones of the population are local. The Turkic veneer is real, but it's a veneer. This is where the science gets philosophically uncomfortable, because it asks a question that goes far beyond Turkey. What does it actually mean to be a people? If language can replace itself in a generation, but DNA takes thousands of years to shift, which one is the real identity? When a child in Cappadocia today speaks Turkish, prays facing Mecca, and feels in her bones that she is the heir of Mehmed the Conqueror, she is also, biologically, the heir of the Hittite priestesses who carved temples into rock 4,000 years ago. Both are true. Neither is fake. Identity, the genome seems to say, is a story we tell over a foundation that was already there. Compare this to other parts of Europe and the patterns repeat with eerie regularity. The English speak a Germanic language, but most of their DNA traces back to populations who were on the island long before any Anglo-Saxon ship arrived. The French speak a Latin language, but their genes are mostly Celtic and pre-Celtic. The Hungarians speak a language brought in by horsemen from the Ural Mountains, but their genome is overwhelmingly Central European. Language migrates fast, people migrate slow. And what we call a nation is almost always older than the words it uses to describe itself. Turkey, in that sense, is not the exception. Turkey is the rule, written in the boldest letters anywhere on the continent. There's another finding the public almost never hears about. When researchers compared the Turkish genome to ancient DNA from skeletons excavated across Anatolia, they got a result that should be sitting on the front page of every history book. The closest ancient population to modern Turks is not steppe nomads. It's the farmers who lived in central Anatolia in the Neolithic, the people who built Çatalhöyük, the world's first proto-cities more than 9,000 years ago. Those farmers are also, by the way, the genetic ancestors of most Southern Europeans. The wave of agriculture that swept out of Anatolia and into Greece, the Balkans, Italy, France, and Spain carried not just seeds and tools, but DNA, which means that when you compare a Spaniard to a Turk and you find shared ancestry, you're not looking at a coincidence. You're looking at the long memory of the very first farmers in Europe, the people who taught the continent how to eat bread. Step back and the picture comes into focus. The Mediterranean is not a wall, it's a basin. For 10,000 years, every coast around it has been swapping people, ideas, and chromosomes with every other coast. The Greeks and the Turks, the Italians and the Lebanese, the Spaniards and the Moroccans, the Egyptians, and the Cretans. They are all variations on a theme that began when somebody figured out how to plant a seed in a hill above what is now Konya and carry the secret west. The Ottomans, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Crusaders, the Phoenicians, they all rode the same currents, and they all left their cargo behind. Modern nations drew lines through that basin and pretended the lines were ancient. The DNA never got the memo. Some of the most fascinating data comes from looking inside Turkey itself. Turkey is not a single population. The East differs from the West. The Black Sea coast differs from the Mediterranean coast. The Southeast carries more Mesopotamian and Levantine ancestry, reflecting deep, deep ties to ancient Syria and the Fertile Crescent. The Black Sea, especially the area around Trabzon, holds the genetic memory of the Pontic Greeks, who lived there for almost 3,000 years until the population exchanges of the early 20th century. Western Turkey, facing the Aegean, carries the strongest signal of continuity with classical Greek populations. And in pockets across the country, you find groups whose ancestry tells very specific stories, descendants of Cretan Muslims, of Caucasian refugees, of Crimean Tatars, of Balkan migrants who came in waves as the Ottoman Empire shrank and people fled toward what was still home. Every wave of history piled another layer onto Anatolia. None of those layers ever fully replaced the one beneath it. They just blended. And this is where the story stops being about Turks and starts being about all of us. Because if a country whose entire founding myth is built around an Asian conquest turns out, under the microscope, to be mostly the same Mediterranean population it was 4,000 years ago, what does that say about every other country's myth? What does it say about the maps in our heads, the borders we treat as eternal, the categories we use to sort human beings into us and them? The geneticists didn't set out to make a political point. They were just running samples. But the results they came back with quietly dismantle one of the most stubborn beliefs of the modern world. The belief that nations are biological things, that a flag and a language correspond to a bloodline. They don't. They never did. The bloodlines are older, messier, and more shared than any flag will admit. There's a moment in some of these studies, almost a footnote, that I keep thinking about. When the researchers placed every sampled European and Middle Eastern population on a single genetic plot, the Turks didn't sit off to one side as outsiders. They sat exactly where geography would put them, between Greece and the Caucasus, a little east of Italy, a little west of Iran, just where you would expect the Mediterranean people who never left the Mediterranean to sit. The map of their DNA matched the map of their land, not the map of their language, not the map of their conquerors, the map of their actual, physical, lived history. And in that quiet little observation, 1,000 years of political mythology dissolves. So next time somebody tells you confidently who belongs where, who is European, who is Asian, who is the rightful heir of which piece of land, remember the moment those scientists stared at their screens and realized the Greek and the Turk were the same person. Remember that the Anatolian Peninsula has been a meeting ground, a melting pot, and a memory keeper for so long that no empire has ever managed to wipe its slate clean. Remember that the most enduring thing about us, the thing written into our cells, is not the war stories we inherit, but the silent, stubborn continuity of the people who never left. If this is the kind of story that changes the way you see the world, the kind that takes a fact you thought you knew and quietly rotates it 90 degrees, then stick around. Subscribe, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments which European country's hidden genetic story you want to hear next, because almost every nation on the map is sitting on a similar surprise. I read every comment, I pick the best topics from there, and the next video is already waiting in the lab. The lines on the map are recent, the people are old, and there is a lot more to dig up.